What's up, everybody? It's Move the Sticks. And once again, we got my man Patrick Claybon jumping in to join the pod. And so now, if it's not first time caller or long time listener, first time caller, then what would be?
I guess I've ascended. I've ascended to friend of the show levels.
Friend of the show.
So here we are. We've made it.
Claybon. And so today, this is kind of loose, Patrick. We get a chance in the middle of the week, we get to talk about anything and everything, kind of take our own path. And so we're going to do that. We're going to talk about an extension of the conversation that we had. We talked a little bit about contenders and dark horses and those things, but we're going to talk about two teams that I believe should be in that conversation, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But before that, let's get right to it. It's time for Hot or Not, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. And we're going to talk about some of these wide receivers. I know you love wide receivers. We think about fantasy and touches, and as we get closer to the playoffs and all this other stuff, let's talk about some of the guys that showed up. And let's just stay right here where we are in L.A. Puka Nacua going off against the Buffalo Bills. Talk about him. What do you think about my guy?
I'm so proud because that was the reason I picked the Los Angeles Rams last week, because I was thinking about this Bills defense. And I understood, Cynthia Freeland pointed out on our show on Game Day View, the way that the Bills cover receivers when they're in motion. And I'm picturing Sean McVay with this opportunity to go up against Sean McDermott. And it's like, Puka's going to get the ball on these reverse handoffs. They're going to have difficulty dealing with him in the pass game, because the best wide receiver one matchup that this Bills team has had, you go all the way back to week 5, the last time they lost. That's when Nico Collins literally hurt himself, Bucky, running away from the Bills secondary, scoring a touchdown. And it's not to diminish the Buffalo Bills, but it's just to say that there are certain times where there's talent on the opposition that you don't necessarily have an answer for. And the Buffalo Bills and a lot of teams, when this Rams team is out there healthy and Stafford's dealing, just can't deal with 10 and 17. And Puka was the main recipient, and he was dominant and showed every aspect, because he ran so many different routes, outs, curls, digs. I think the only one not on the tree that he ran was a go. The Bills were scared to death of that too.
Here's what I feel like. Nacua is almost like a buy one get one free type player, right? I feel like whenever you get him, Cooper Kupp has to come along with it, because when you think about the Rams offense and what they're able to do, this dynamic duo, they're interchangeable parts. They really complement and support one another in terms of the way their games are built. And when they are healthy and Matthew Stafford is available and dealing, this offense is a nightmare to deal with. And I felt like I had some of that energy from when Jared Goff was first leading the team to prominence. Fly sweep game, motion game, some of the cute stuff that they're able to do. I feel like Sean McVay is finding his rhythm, and Puka Nacua is certainly being one of the guys that is helping him get it done. Let's talk about someone who had a really good game in a losing effort. How about Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Darnell Mooney? 6 catches, 142 yards. Now, they got mollywopped. They got mollywopped by the Minnesota Vikings, but guess what? When we look at stats and fantasy, we don't care. It's not about the bottom line is the production, and Mooney's production certainly stood out.
Yeah, in games where Kirk Cousins is operable, right? Darnell Mooney is successful, and we saw that, like, the Falcons were in the game. The late interceptions kind of ended things, but he's more than just a viable target. I think Darnell Mooney is a good player that was kind of mired in the offensive situation in Chicago for a very long time, and now he gets essentially, like, what are we talking, 70% of what Kirk Cousins can be, and he's had this season. It really highlights what he can bring to the table, playing for not just Atlanta, but it's the quarterback. Like, it's tough to get past the way things are going for the quarterback right now. But considering that game, considering how versatile the Vikings can be, it makes you wonder, what was it that caused Darnell Mooney to have the fall offs that he did in weeks like 11, 12, and 13? And you got to look at number 18. For that, because Darnell Mooney's playing really good football.
Yeah, number 18 is certainly responsible for the fall off. And here's the thing, they'll never admit it, but maybe the guys in purple may be celebrating the exodus of Kirk Cousins, because it seems to be going well for Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, with Sam Darnold looking like the Sam Darnold that used to play in the Coliseum. Jordan Addison, 8 catches, 133 yards, 3 tubs. That is bananas. But his partner, Justin Jefferson, 7 for 132, 2 touchdowns. The thing that we're seeing in Minnesota, a little different than what we're seeing in Philadelphia. These guys are not fussing because they're getting a ton of balls. It is flying all over the yard. They both are putting the ball in the paint, and this offense is thriving with Sam Darnold at the helm. And I don't know if anyone would have been able to say that about Sam Darnold 2 years ago, looking into the crystal ball, no one would have said that. You know what? Sam Darnold's crushing it. And he's crushing it because of the playmakers around him in Minnesota.
Yeah, and you see, right, that prince who was promised and Sam Darnold coming in, where we saw the warts, everything going wrong, where he was in bad situations on bad teams, and now he has a coaching staff that believes in him, a defense that gets them the ball back, and even with losing one of the better tackles in the league, and Christian Darrisaw, they're able to go and make that trade, bring in Cam Robinson, and
Mm-hmm.
the offense, it's not that it doesn't lose a step, right? But it's still viable and gives Sam a chance to make plays like he did on that long touchdown to Justin Jefferson, where the Falcons are able to get some pressure. Darnold steps up, and we got, defenders diving for their lives, just trying to track down 18. It's kind of what we want to see for the Vikings on a really balanced team.
Yeah, a really balanced team. And Kevin O'Connell's done a really good job of helping the quarterback. But it's easy to help the quarterback when you got the playmakers around him. And speaking of quarterbacks who need help or maybe don't need help but are playing well, how about Tua Tagovailoa and what he's been able to do with Tyreek Hill, particularly what he did in that overtime thriller against the New York Jets. Tyreek Hill, 10 catches, 115 touchdown, 32-26 win over the Jets.
And kind of healing a mistake that came from Thanksgiving, where the Dolphins have a 4th and goal and Tyreek Hill wasn't on the field. And so what happens the very next week? There's a 4th and goal against the Jets. Tyreek runs in and back out. Tua hits him. Then on the 2-point conversion, they have Jalen Waddle run the same route, and he throws it right back to him. Where those guys are absorbing most of the targets, they didn't even use Jonnu Smith until the game got to overtime, and they throw him a screen. He gets a nice game. They throw him the exact same screen. Again, he gets up screaming, and it's like, okay, well, we'll load up Jonnu for the game-winning touchdown. It makes you frustrated. It's just how bad they looked without Tua, and seeing what, and then against the Jets. So caveat there. But when it comes to getting a win, you can't apologize for getting wins in this league. And I think people are seeing, right, of all the criticism about Tua, he gets with the ball, he's accurate, he makes plays, everybody there loves it. What else do you want?
I mean, I don't know what else you want, maybe except for like maybe a little club dub kind of built and constructed in the corner of the end zone with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all those guys, maybe jumping into the pool, having a little fun.
Yeah.
But this offense really goes as Tua Tagovailoa makes it go. And when he's healthy and available, we do see the reemergence of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as premier pass catchers. The thing that we've learned for the Miami Dolphins in 2024, like it or not, Tua Tagovailoa is a big-time playmaker. And his wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, he's pretty good too. That was this week's Hot or Not segment, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. All right, Pat. So now we talked about these contenders and pretenders last time on the pod, and we mentioned some teams. We talked about the Baltimore Ravens, talked about Philadelphia, Detroit, Kansas City. But to me, there are 2 teams that really stand out, and they don't get a lot of love, and I don't know why there's not a lot of love. But in the previous segment, we talked about the Minnesota Vikings, and we talked about the Purple People Leaders and how offensively, man, Kevin O'Connell has really done a job getting Sam Darnold up to speed. But, man, when I look at this team, I don't know. I may be alone in this. I see a team that can make a Super Bowl run with Sam Darnold at quarterback. What say you, though?
I think so, because we discussed these teams, right, Bucky, and what are the warts on each individual team, and you have a squad like the Baltimore Ravens, where you don't know which defense is going to show up. You have the injuries of the Detroit Lions, and then you get to like the Minnesota Vikings, where there's balance. We have a veteran defense that can shut people down. Andrew Van Ginkel with over 100 pass rushes, over 100 drops into coverage, over 100 plays in the run game and stopping the run. And so if you talk about like what team has the highest floor, I feel like it's hard not to make a case for the Minnesota Vikings, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it's very obvious that this is a really good team. They can do it a few different ways. We can talk about how explosive their offense is, but to me, the Vikings are dangerous because defensively they dominate in 2 areas: sacks and takeaways. Man, if you knock the quarterback down and around, if you're able to produce turnovers, it's going to give you an opportunity to win a significant amount of games, particularly when everyone knows the biggest deciding factor in football, turnovers. When I look at the way they're able to do it, and let's be real, Brian Flores and the way that he has taken this cover zero scheme to the next level where they're bringing everybody, but then drop back and drop 8 in the games that they play with quarterbacks and play callers makes them a very challenging team to deal with. And because they know going into the game that their offense can score, it gives them an opportunity to always play with the lead. That eliminates the run game at them. That now allows them to kind of get in those track stances and go after quarterbacks. And for an ultra aggressive defensive play caller, man, Brian Flores loves that.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, because he's got that club in the bag where he can be aggressive, offenses take that into account. And there's plays, and in fact, there's entire games where Brian Flores pulls back the lever and he's not blitzing, right?
Yes.
And it just depends on the game plan for that particular week. They can do it all, right? It's not like you're going up against, like, if you want to talk about like late stage Kingsbury, where it's like, all right, well, that this wide receiver is going to be lined up on this side of the field at all times. The Vikings could do whatever they want, and they could be good at it.
They certainly can. And I think it's funny that we're having a conversation with Brian Flores. Brian Flores certainly benefited from his, I don't know, I can't even call it an internship or apprenticeship, whatever you want to call it. But the time that he spent in Pittsburgh working with Mike Tomlin has served him well. It's also served the Pittsburgh Steelers well, because when I look at this Steelers team, they're in the mix. And we always talk about Pittsburgh and their defense because their defense is lights out. TJ Watt and Cam Hayward are playing great. Young Joey Porter Jr. is being groomed to be the next great cornerback. But offensively, who says the Dice guys finish last? Russell Wilson has the Pittsburgh Steelers balling, and all the people that were like, look, deriding him for his corny dad jokes and all that other stuff, who's having the last laugh now? Russell Wilson is 6-1 as the starter. The Pittsburgh Steelers are inching closer to winning the division, and everyone is having to rewrite those little bad stories they wrote about him last year. Russell Wilson is legit.
And it really highlights how absurd that avalanche of bad press for Russell Wilson, where it's like the headline on some of it is like, Russ had a funny look on his face one time when I talked to him on like a Tuesday. And now we come back and we see, the way that the locker room responds, the way that this team responds, the way they celebrated, right, when they were able to get the Washington Commanders to jump off sides, and Russ is out there celebrating as well. Exactly. And it's like, listen, and folks get mad at Russ for being like this carbon copy, stiff moving quarterback in terms of the way that he had discussions with us, when a lot of guys fall into that category. Right. And it was unfair then, and it's unfair now. And I hope the apology, right, is as loud as the criticism, but it's not going to be. And Russ knows that it's not going to be. And he's going to have to pick up the Lombardi trophy before people acknowledge that. But this team can do it for a lot of the same reasons that we talked about the Minnesota Vikings, because they can execute. Now, on offense, a lot of that depends on, George Pickens. Is he there? Is he there, first of all? Is he physically on the field? So we got to keep track of his hamstring injury. But the defense is solid. The offense is solid. And Chris Boswell's probably kicking the best in the game right now.
It's funny because it's a full circle moment for Russell Wilson. I feel like he jumped back into a situation that he jumped into when he was a rookie and a young player for the Seattle Seahawks, a culture that's been established, a defense that could get it done on their own. And they just need him to take care of the ball and make a handful of plays in the fourth quarter, which is he's shown that he can do. The one thing that I'll say, it's the same for both. Pete Carroll advocated for Russell Wilson, stood up for Russell Wilson at every turn when Russell was a young player. Mike Tomlin has found a way to do that, to protect Russell Wilson from the onslaught of criticism by allowing Russell to be himself and by embracing Russell as he is. It's funny because the conversation that existed when Mike Tomlin made the decision to move on from Justin Fields, and I was one that was like, got it going. But Mike Tomlin was willing to kind of stand on it and be like, no, Russell Wilson's the starting quarterback. I believe in him. I get paid well compensated to make these decisions. He doubled down on the quarterback, and the quarterback is certainly paying him off.
Yeah, it worked out for Russ and Mike Tomlin, facing tons of criticism. Arthur Smith got the world of criticism in the way things finished in Atlanta. And so it's like a revenge trio, right, against the narrative for all these guys. And it's working out. And ultimately, unfortunately, right, it's all going to come down to one game in January, February before people, declare it a victory. But I think it's a victory. I think what the Pittsburgh Steelers have done this season has been spectacular.
It is spectacular. And I said this when Russell was going in. There was some concern about would Russell be able to finally claim that gold jacket. I think if he does what some of us are speculating that he can do in Pittsburgh, he absolutely gets the gold jacket. And then I have to wonder, does he go in wearing black or does he go in wearing the Seattle blue? Because he has kind of become he's become a Steeler. And I don't know if any of us had Russell Wilson embodying Steelers on the bingo card prior to the season.
No, it's been a complete change, and I think a welcome one for Russ, where it's allowed us to see, a little bit more of Russ and that genuineness that comes from Mike Tomlin. And if he picks up that trophy, I don't know. It could depend. We could all have to go back and look at that tackle that Dante Hightower made on Marshawn Lynch before the ultimate play and say, this is it. This is what determined whether or not this man puts on a gold jacket.
Yeah, it certainly does. And so you know who deserves a gold jacket? Patrick Claybon deserves a gold jacket for stepping in, joining the podcast, and allowing some great conversation to take place. Pat, if I can ever pay you back, if I can jump on the show, if I can come in, if we give you like a little something, call your boy, man.
Okay.
I'll return the favor.
Yeah, we're gonna have you on Fantasy Live ASAP. You'll be on there. So we'll get it done.
Okay, we're going to make sure we get it done. Look, that was Move the Sticks for the day. I'm Bucky Brooks. That's Patrick Claybon. Until next time, we'll talk to you again.